Hey, it's Pastor David. I'm here on Thursday at 3, and today I am super excited to introduce a wonderful person to you, someone I know that you would love to meet, and that is Tanya Doyle. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has joined her ministry to our Four Pillars Counseling and Enrichment Center. And that really excites me because I have found her to be a strong woman of faith and insight, and I think that she is a healer. And I just want you to get to know her today and perhaps know where to go if you should like to have a conversation further. So, Tanya, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Tanya, I'm going to jump right in, and I appreciate
Mhm.
you giving us time today. And I am really glad that you're part of the team of counselors and therapists over there at Four Pillars. I think it's just a incredible ministry. As I've mentioned to you, I'm a frequent flyer. They have a start in therapy for actually becoming a pastor as part of the requirement of becoming a pastor, but I've never looked back in the 34
Nice.
years. And our whole family and Robin and my wife and I, we go every couple of years because we need to tune up our language with each other. So I just
Definitely.
love your ministry.
Thank
So
you.
tell me a little bit about because I think people have different opinions and they have different perceptions of therapists and what happens. So tell me, if I were to come to you, if a couple were to come to you or an individual, what's your approach and what are you seeking to do? Like, well, how do you go about this?
So my first, I guess, kind of spiel for the client when they come in is I tell them that my goal here is to help you feel as safe as
Mm,
possible because we're doing very hard work, but it's also very delicate, it's very
mm,
vulnerable. And if we don't create that safety in the room as the therapist, then the client is not going to be able to open up and share what they need to share. So the first thing you will notice about me is that I'm very nurturing and
mm,
compassionate. And I also let clients know if there's something that they're confused with or don't understand or don't agree with, please
mm,
give me your feedback. It's a very open relationship where I look to the client as the expert of their life
mm,
and
mm,
I'm learning from them. And then I'm also really relying on the Holy Spirit to give me wisdom and discernment about what each person needs in the room and genuinely want them to leave my counseling office feeling that they've accomplished some healing, but also that they've felt loved and seen and understood unconditionally. That is really my goal because that's the heart of Christ is for people to feel loved unconditionally just as they are because that's who we are as his disciples is to love people where they're at. And I hope that they get a sense of that from me as their therapist.
I love that. I love talking about the person you're working with is the expert on their life. So
Mhm.
what that says is, you're not coming in to change them or correct them or tell them where they're off, but to be a listening voice, a nurturing voice, a safe voice, working with the spirit to kind of discern that is something that I think everyone should have the experience of. I actually had my counseling today and it's just so important to me to process so that I can be a better person and more of who I am. So
Yeah.
you've referenced, and I really appreciate it as I've gone through life and chosen different counselors. I always start with kind of where they're at in their faith,
Mhm.
because for me, it's important that I can talk to someone or talk with someone who understands some of my values
Right.
and not to proselytize me or push me, but understands the values from where I come from. And
Right.
so I know you are a strong woman of faith. I know you are a disciple of Jesus. I can tell in our conversations. I know by your faith practice. How does that work into your ministry as a therapist? How does that play out in let's say your interaction with people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So when I see a client, let's say for the first time, and whether I know they're Christian or not, it's the same approach. And then I learn about them as we go. And in these moments where, let's say, I'm working with a client who doesn't have a faith background, my goal is just to be the hands and feet of Christ and serve them with
Mm,
excellence, right? As I would serve any other client. And if they are Christian, then it's kind of like you said, checking where they're at in their faith and not pushing any agenda on them, but allowing them to share with me what would be helpful
mm,
from a faith perspective in order to support them on their journey. Some clients want me to reference scriptures as
yeah.
homework and things that they can, work on throughout the week. many clients Christian and not have asked me to pray with them at the end of
Mm,
sessions, and I'll do that as well.
wow.
And
Wow.
so it's just a very powerful moment in the therapist's office, and I take it very seriously as this is what God has called me to do to help and support individuals, children, families with where they're at in life without judgment, but with compassion and support and love. And I do that by being present and being with them. And when my faith, like as the Holy Spirit's leading me, and I see something or notice something that will be beneficial to them and sharing that, I've had clients cry. So I know, like,
Mm,
in that moment, like the Holy Spirit's working, whether they are of faith or not. And that touches me and is rewarding to me when I know that I'm listening and being obedient to
mm.
where God is leading me in a session.
That's awesome. Because it is different. I do feel like, I have some similar values, but being a disciple means I have some different values that
Mhm,
inform my life. And it's hard for me to talk about those places without having some knowledge of those values. So I really appreciate the safety of a place where either I don't have to talk about it or I
mhm,
can talk about it in depth. And that's really a wonderful gift. So I'm always curious, and I know you've done this work for a while. I'm always curious when I run into someone that's an expert like you are. You've seen a bunch of families and relationships, couples, partners. What would be one of the key ingredients of a successful partner relationship? Like, Rob and I are going on 30 years next year. We're working on,
wow.
it all changes. So what would you
Yeah.
say is a key ingredient?
Yeah, so working with many couples, over the years, and they're my favorite to work with. I have a passion for couples, I really do. And what I've noticed, whether they're of faith or not, one of the key elements of having a successful relationship and working through really hard things, because life is not easy and it brings challenges all the time, is each person's ability to really be honest with where they're at, be able to communicate that in a way that is compassionate, but true and kind and respectful. And then also being able to humble themselves to be able to see their partner's perspective, to be able to kind of take in some of the truths that maybe may feel hurtful, but being able to understand it through that lens of maybe wisdom and also understanding and compassion. And for me, when we can do that as a couple, then we're able to work as a team towards what is getting in the way of our connection, what is getting in the way of us having a healthy marriage and
Mm,
relationship. And I think couples need to be able to kind of, like you said, have that reflection, be able to check in with a therapist. You guys go every 2 years. I have clients who come every 6 months. They've worked through their hard stuff. And then eventually it's once a year, right? Just to make sure that things are healthy, things are going well. It's like your annual visit to a
yeah,
doctor. We don't know what's going on in our body unless, we're doing some blood work and we're checking things out. And that's why that's so important. Well, our mental health is just as important, and it affects how we show up in relationships. And to me, relationships are the heart of God. And that's why Jesus had 12 disciples to be here with him and support him in his ministry. He could have done it alone. He's God, but
right.
he modeled relationships for us. And that's why my heart is to help people with their relationships. So I think if we can do that in marital relationships and family relationships and even friendships, I
Yeah.
think we'd be more successful with those relationships.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with me, this idea of being able to share
Hmm.
something that's authentic to you, but in a way that is approachable and helpful. You know,
Hmm.
uh, coming from my background, it's taken me a lifetime to learn to try to share in a way that's helpful and digestible, coming out of a way where I wasn't always encouraged to share, right? So I have
Right.
like all these voices from the past, and
Hmm.
then like Robin and I, sometimes we've gone just changing the words we use,
Hmm.
like changes the whole. We get stuck sometimes on
Right.
some trigger words, and boy,
Yep.
all it takes is that trigger word. And so there have been times when we've gone just to learn different language, which has changed the whole dynamic of things. And so I
That's
really
amazing. Yeah. But you humbled yourself to learn. So that's so good. Yeah.
Okay, that's what you call it. Yeah. So obviously, going into this ministry, this work, this career is not just something you decide to do overnight. It's
Yeah.
a journey, and I know it's not an easy journey. Why?
Yeah.
How did you get into this line of ministry?
Yeah, it was definitely God kind of directing my path here. I was very successful working at a Fortune 500 company in a management role, doing well, making good money, and just found that I enjoyed the people more than I enjoyed the business side
Yeah,
of
yeah.
my job. And I just enjoyed connecting with people and helping the people on my team kind of talk through things. And then I was in the car one day and, I was just listening to my worship music on Z88, and this commercial came on. And it was for a college, a Christian college that offered the master's program in counseling psychology. And I just felt the Holy Spirit say, why don't you go check them out?
Mm,
So I went and I fell in love with the school, fell in love with the
mhm.
program, and just enjoyed the work. And I feel like God had this calling on my life that at the time I wasn't aware of. I was a single woman, being a professional woman out there trying to just make my way in life. And then he kind of put a halt to all of that. And then I
Mhm.
actually met my husband while I was in grad school. So
Wow.
all of that worked out for a reason, and God knew where I needed to be. And through that,
Mm,
he impressed upon me that he was going to use me to help families heal marriages, children, parent child relationships, in law relationships, sibling relationships, because, like I mentioned before, God is at the heart for relationships. He wants us to have healthy relationships first with him, right? And then with those in our life, like our spouse and our children. And if we don't have those healthy relationships, then we can't really be a lighthouse to the community that we serve. Because if we're full of brokenness, it's not as attractive to others if they're like, oh, look, the Christians with their high divorce rate and their broken
yeah,
families, right? It's hard to minister in those places. So I definitely feel like the healthier we are as a church, the better equipped we are to do ministry, and we can be that lighthouse on a hill that everybody can see shining the light of Christ through their love for their families, for their spouse, for their God. And I feel like that's why I kind of got planted into this, is to
yeah.
fulfill the calling that God had on my life.
That's beautiful. I think the more I become authentic in my marriage and with my kids, the more authentic I can be with other people. And
Yes,
that's
that's
really
very
been,
true.
it becomes a place where that growth towards authenticity radiates out and
Hmm.
helps other people see it. So I love that. So you mentioned a husband. I think you
Hmm.
have children. Tell me a
Yes.
little about your family.
Yes, love bragging about my kids. So I have an older son, he's 25. So technically, we're a blended family. He's my stepson, but I don't call him that. I've known him since he was 5, and he's an amazing young man. He's 25 years old, lives in Jacksonville because he went to school there and built a future for himself there. And then I have my daughter who's 16 and my son who's 14, and both of them are avid competitive soccer players. So my
Oh,
weekends are
okay.
spent out on the fields, whether it's
That's
raining
your whole
or
world. Yeah.
hot or cold. I am out there cheering them on. I am their number one fan, and also a little bit of an Uber driver throughout the week. And
Sure.
my mother-in-law is amazing, and she supports me and my husband with Ubering as well, which is great. And then my husband and I have been married for 17 years, and he's an amazing man. And together we're trying to just get through life and honor God the best that we can. And
Yeah.
at times it feels like we're surviving, and other times it feels like we're thriving. So it's been quite the journey that God has used to shape us to look more like him, for sure.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, it's an interesting journey, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. So if I wanted to sit down with you and have some time in this beautiful thing you've described of a safe place where you're listening to me as an expert on my life and you're letting me work on some healing in those places in my relationships. How do I do that? How do I get in touch with you? How do I connect to that?
Yeah, so definitely I'm on the Four Pillars website with the church, and my information's there. So my email and my phone number there. You can text or call or leave a voicemail on my phone number, and then email as well. And then I have a website. You can Google my name, Tanya Doyle, Connected Counseling Orlando, and that also has some more information about me and kind of what I specialize in and the additional trainings that I have. But that would probably be the easiest way, email or phone call.
Tanya, I'm really grateful that you're a part of the team there and that you're offering your ministry to our family. And I want them to know you and know this is a great resource. And I just so much appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you so much for giving me your time. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, we'll see you in church on Sunday. God bless.